Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today for the Professional Development Workshop, highlighting partnership opportunities between industry and educational institutions. The Duluth Chamber is super grateful to provide this offering free of charge in 22 to our chamber members because of the generosity of our sponsor, the College of St. Scholastica, Stender School of Business and Technology. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing to you our speaker for today, Eric Nordgren. Eric is the Director of Educational Experiences and Development at the Stender School of Business and Technology. So he joins us today not only as our keynote speaker, but also as a representative of our series sponsor. So an extra thank you to you, Eric, for being here. And I'm excited to hear a little bit more about the Stender School of Business and Technology from you today, but also to learn or have that look on learning ways that our organizations can partner with educational institutions to build those meaningful relationships that meet future workforce needs. So please go ahead and take it away. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Chris, and thank you to everyone else for attending today as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation here, and we'll get started. Hopefully that's coming through for everybody. Are we looking good?
Looks great.
All right. And the title that's on there, Director of Educational Experiences and Development, that is a new title for me within the past couple of weeks here. I'm excited to be serving in this role where I'm looking at supporting things by way of introduction here. I have been with St. Scholastica for about 6 years now. I started out as the program manager in the Department of Health Informatics and Information Management. A couple of years ago, we made a move from the School of Health Sciences to the School of Business and Technology. And at that time, I moved into a role of serving both the school and the department, and that has developed to where I am at now. And you'll hear a little bit through this presentation about how events like this are really important and I think really valuable to the exact kind of thing that we're trying to achieve. As mentioned, the Stender School of Business and Technology is a sponsor of this series, and we're grateful to have this opportunity. Thank you to the Chamber for helping to provide this opportunity as well. And I want to give just a brief mention. We have a couple of new programs that we're launching for this coming fall that we think are going to be really well received. We've got a Master's in Nonprofit Leadership that there will be some more information coming out on soon. We have a webinar later in April that will feature that. And we've also got a Master's in Healthcare Administration that we'll be launching. So it's really exciting times to continue to see development within the School of Business and Technology and within the school at large. And I would say too, just by way of background, the things that I do are heavily involved in supporting students. I'm a staff member and work with placing students in internship experiences, as we'll learn about, and other partnerships. So that's where my presentation comes from today. So in terms of what we're going to go through here in this presentation, a few goals that I'm hoping you'll come away with. I would say this is kind of a high-level look at all of these topics, really kind of the basic of what it might look like to build those meaningful connections that Chris had mentioned there. And again, looking to the future workforce needs. Talk a little bit about resources that are available and how to go about building those partnerships. Thinking about how you can support those aspiring professionals and also assist with the development and training of current workforce. And a brief look at how the CEUs, continuing education units, may play into this as well for people who hold professional certifications and things like that. So I do want to give a shout also to our Career Services Department, and especially Carrie Taylor Kemp. I talked with her about this presentation as well because she does that work, the same work on behalf of the college. And so I'm really talking kind of through the lens of what I've done in the Department of Health Informatics and Information Management and the Stender School as to what she does for the college as a whole. And to kick things off here, I really want to just paint the picture of kind of why I think the idea of building these partnerships is so important. Um, and especially at this moment. There are a few things that have shifted really significantly over the past few years as we've kind of gone in and out, riding the wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the biggest realities is that workforce has shifted significantly. I think especially for jobs that there is not a required on-site component. Our health informatics and information management students particularly, a lot of our alum are saying they're not in the office and they're never going back to the office. So we're looking at remote workforce where people may be located anywhere in the country, even if a position is located and tied to a specific institution. And with that, I'm sure folks here are familiar with the kind of low unemployment numbers and competitiveness of the job market. There's this talk about this thing that's happening that occasionally is referred to as a great resignation. I'm not sure that that's the best descriptor, but we'll go with it for right now. And that means that people have been looking for opportunities that are going to be meaningful for them if they're not finding that with their current employer. There's been a shift and there are lots of open positions. I was at a conference here recently and it was amazing to me the number of people with C-suite experience that were coming up and saying, hey, here's my business card. If you have students, please send them our way. And on one hand, we love to see that because we love to build those connections. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But on the other hand, we also have to be mindful of kind of where things are headed in higher education. This is something that has been talked about a fair amount. And not just higher education, but really graduating from secondary education as well, that the number of high school students that will be graduating in the coming years is going to dip significantly. There's going to be a reduction in the people who are coming out getting 2-year degrees, getting 4-year degrees, entering the workforce. And so I would say that the competitiveness in the market that we're seeing right now is likely to persist for that reason. And as we're talking about that too, I want to mention briefly just that thought as we're framing this experience of remembering who the students are. And I think that I just want to make sure we're not looking only through the lens of the traditional age student. Obviously, we serve a significant amount of that population here at St. Scholastica that are graduating at 21, 22 years old and entering the workforce. But there are also a lot of folks that are those in that aspiring professional phase that are changing careers, that have experience and are looking to progress with their own career. So it's not just that younger population, but there are plenty of adult learners that can fit into the things that I'm talking today as well. And it's important to just think about that as you're framing the way that you might use the ideas that I'm bringing forward today. And so just kind of briefly here, the overview of some things that I'm going to cover in terms of what can we work on together as educational institutions and outside organizations. And I think that, again, I'm going to go through a real high level view of all these, but these are places where I've seen success in the past, and I think that there's going to be continued room for growth in tying toward meeting those future workforce needs. There's always the internship ideas. We've seen a lot of success with project work, the part-time work, those two things. Thinking a little bit about continuing education and particularly how that ties to retention and development of your current workforce. I think that that's something that as there's turnover, as there's competitiveness, it's going to be more important maybe than it ever has been before in terms of how once you've got those employees with you, how do you keep them in-house and how can institutions help to support those kind of development programs for employers. And then just thinking a little bit about ways to communicate. And the way that I would think about this is these are different places where organizations can choose to or look at engaging on a number of these. One of these, there are some of them that are more involved than others, So it's introducing them and giving you an idea of where you might go as an organization or as an individual in terms of building those connections. On the internship side, there's two versions that I have seen work really successfully. There are some places where, like our health informatics and information management program, they have a required internship, so that's educational. It's not paid. It's an on-site experience where students are going out and seeing what it's like to work within that profession and get the experience before they move out into the workforce. And I'll say that this is, and then obviously there are paid opportunities as well for internships, short-term and longer-term things that ties kind of in with the part-time work and summer things as well. Thinking about that externally supervised on-site experience, especially for the educational part of it. So the students getting maybe a broad look at the organization. They might come in under a specific, kind of a specific department, but the hope is with any of those internships, they're also getting to network within the organization and make connections to positions that will be available in the future. And we've really discovered that those become extended interview opportunities, and both for the students, for the aspiring professionals, and for the employer. You know, you think about what the typical interview process looks like, and it's kind of these short chunks that you get to interact with these people. Whereas if you have someone in for an internship experience, they're on site, you get to learn about their skill set, get to learn about how that person fits within your workplace culture, and they get to learn about the same things too. And you learn, I think, really well through that experience how that person might fit and how their skills might help your organization. And then another thing that we've seen a lot of success with is the project work. And this is kind of smaller chunks, I would say, than what the internship experience would be. You know, these can range from 10 to 20 hour projects up from there. And a few of them that I've seen be particularly successful locally tied particularly to the HIM department. There was a free clinic that exists that is staffed by UMD pharmacy and medical students. And they were looking at how they could improve their record keeping. And they had partnered with us, and I forget what the sponsoring organization in the community was right now, but it had partnered with us to help work on that record keeping part of things. Our students had gone and helped with that. Community health center researching, and students were researching and providing information on some some legislative changes that had happened, and delivering information about how the community health center would have to adapt to the changes that were coming via legislation. Here's a Lighthouse Center for Vision Loss, and they had a project working on some insurance verification and getting approved for that our students had been able to support. iClinic here in Duluth with a medical record transfer. They were moving from an old paper charting system to an electronic medical record, and students were able to assist as they were making that shift as well. And a dental office where students came in and reviewed their HIPAA policies to help ensure that they were staying in compliance with the privacy and security regulations. So these are some things. Again, this is that narrow lens that I have, but whatever those projects that crop up, it's a one-time thing, and it is a place where you think it might be a good opportunity for students to engage. That's something to think about, bringing them in or reaching out to local folks to try and make the connection to help support that. I think about I'm calling this the part-time pipeline because this functions, in my mind, very similarly to what the internship component works, where you're getting an extended interview for someone who is coming in and working part-time that may become a permanent employee. And we see this move fairly often, where there will be summer opportunities, a position that is from July through the end of August, or I should say June through the end of August, that turns into the student getting hired for the following year if they're doing it near the end of their school experience. You can get them into those entry-level positions where they really get to know the organization well, get to make connections, and they can kind of find out where the best fit for them might be. And thinking about the ways that you want to be competitive in the market, there are also the kind of temporary employees or early hires that can occur when students haven't finished their program, but because of the part-time work that they're doing, they have a job secured once they have graduated. And we've seen this. I know the nursing program has done some of this with the organizations in the area. I also know that we've had students within our departments that have been working part-time and hired for a position in January, that they were able to continue at a part-time level until they graduated in May and moved immediately into that full-time position. And that's definitely going to help your onboarding process when you're trying to get someone into that full-time position, help to reduce some of the burden of that transition as well. So I think that those are things that have a lot of benefit in terms of building out ways, those opportunities for people who are entering the profession or making those career changes. And then once you've got them as part of your organization, I think it's really important to think on the continuing education side of things, how you can partner with educational institutions as well. Because what we've seen is that employers that are successful right now are providing information on pathways to progress within their organization. A question that's may come up during interview process is what is the room for growth? That's something that's pretty common, right? And so planning out, okay, what is our internal development program going to be in terms of what skills can we help them to build? And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And within individualized programs, you can even look at meeting CEU needs. So you can have someone from the educational institution come in to provide that opportunity for your employees to attend training, build their skill set, meet if they have professional requirements for CEUs, help to meet that so it's not the same cost to them. And we've seen with some of those individualized training programs, there may be grant money that is available through local or state agencies. So that's something that can help to offset the cost of building those programs as well. So the educational institution is providing the instruction, the employer, with the help of the grant funding, is able to provide that training to their employees. And really the thing that I want to think about is looking at the area of expertise. Kind of no matter where you're at as an organization, there are different places where you might need to build those skills. And so look to the local institutions and say, is there someone who knows organizational leadership out of our School of Business and Technology that would be able to come assist with building those skill sets for your employees? And many other opportunities. I've kind of jumped in here, and I forgot to say too, if you have any questions as we're going through this, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll see if I can answer them in real time. Otherwise, I know there will be some time for questions at the end of the presentation here as well. I've just gotten rolling right with it. And the benefits to what I was talking about with the continuing education program and kind of all of these partnership opportunities where you've got aspiring professionals that are coming in part of this partnership with your organization, or faculty members, staff members coming in to provide instruction as well. You're building a culture that is really supporting learning and growth, and that's something that we think is really valuable. You've got that infusion of energy, because I see it with the students that go out for the HIM department to complete internships. They bring a lot of energy to that. They come back wiped out because it's a pretty intense experience to get into that for the first time if they're just getting in, but they've got that energy that, because they're not familiar with what your processes are, they're bringing that new set of eyes and that that excitement about being part of this for the first time. And also that idea of innovation. You've got people who hopefully are getting the most current ideas as part of their education and can bring some of that information and help to support that within your organization. And again, part of that is even just looking at things from an outside perspective and providing some feedback based off of that. And in terms of the skills that you might want to work on building, or how we've seen that approached, one of the things that we've found is that employers may kind of recruit for attitude and train for skill. You look at that fit through the interview, and as long as they meet kind of the basic requirements, you can look at developing additional skills that they might need within your organization. And really, I want to think about it as this can be both soft and hard skills. So this can be something that's technically focused, a specific application that they can gain knowledge in. If they have something that's similar, they can demonstrate that they'd be able to learn what's within your organization. We can also look at again, things like those leadership opportunities, so ways to develop communication strategies, things like that are the soft skills, kind of transferable skills that can go across any workplace. And really, I think organizations and these people who are entering the workforce or making the career changes have to be open and receptive to building these skills, because every workforce is a little different. Even if your company is in the same industry as another, there's going to be differences in the way that you approach things and differences in the way that leadership is approached, and all of those skills. So everyone has to be open to this at all times. It's also important that the expectations are very clearly laid out for everyone who's involved too. Looking at when they come in, what kind of skills employees may need to work on building, looking at your current workforce and kind of surveying who has skills that may be able to fit in another role and kind of continue to keep people moving up as you've developed those growth pathways within your organization. Just making sure that things are defined so that folks know where they're going within the organization, I think is a really helpful thing. And in terms of resources, and I think of this as the places where you actually make those connections. So reaching out and talking to the educational institutions, to educators across the area. Obviously, you have great events like this, chamber events that happen that bring lots of people together from different walks and are able to make those connections and start the conversation that may progress toward these other things. Definitely look to your industry. We've got state organizations and within the various, I'm thinking particularly of the Health Informatics and Information Management Program. There are state organizations that host annual meetings, and local components, so regional groups that have meetings as well. Go to those, because educators are often at those events providing instruction as well. And really any other kind of networking events that you see that are business focused, go there. There's a pretty good chance that someone will be there on behalf of the institutions. And I want to give a quick shout too. I think that if you were just looking for where do I start, where do I go, who do I talk to, if I want to open any of this conversation, I've listed the handful here. So obviously St. Scholastica, who I'm here representing, University of Wisconsin Superior, University of Minnesota Duluth, Lake Superior College, and Northwood, formerly WITC. All of those should have some kind of a career services department or career services page. And if you go to that spot and try connecting with those folks, I bet that they're going to be able to, if it's not them that are managing kind of these things that I've talked about, they'll know who to put you in touch with. So just on a real basic level, that is a starting point if you aren't able to make connections through those other places. Again, I think the chamber events, etc., are a really good place to make connections with specific people. But if you're looking for that basic start, that's where that would be. I also want to mention some things to consider from an organizational perspective as you're looking at these different ways that you can partner with educational institutions. One of them, and it's especially if you're going to look at kind of the educational internships, there's often a legal component that's required to outline the responsibilities of both the institution and the organization. And that covers things like liability as well. It may be something like a MOU or an affiliation agreement. But that's something that you want to make sure that you're prepared to work on if you're looking at that kind of opportunity. As you're looking at all of this too, and again, I think of that as kind of a menu of options, what we've discussed earlier. Think about the capacity of your current workforce and what you can take on. You know, you might have a great idea, but if you don't have the people within the organization to support it, it may not be successful. So you want to think about really what you're going to be able to do. And kind of being flexible, because when you start open that conversation, you might have one idea about things that could be developed, and it could grow into something entirely different. And part of that, I think, is taking a look at what your organization is hoping to do in terms of strategic goals and how that can align with the partnership that you're building with an educational institution. And again, looking back at a couple of things that I think are the value of partnerships, we've got both organizational and individual that I'll mention here. On the organizational side, again, when you're doing these things where you're connecting with people who are coming in for the internships, for the part-time work, for project work, you get that extended interview opportunity. Potentially you're building connection with future employees, future colleagues, and you're building a positive culture, I think, because you're showing progression in terms of bringing new folks in and helping them to move through their career as you're doing with the individuals that are already working for you. And in terms of the individual value of what these partnerships can be, you know, even an individual can move forward in supporting some of these kinds of things because you can provide mentorship. You know, there are formalized mentorship programs. I know that North Force has one that happens over the year that has been really successful. Schools may have mentorship programs where they're using alumni or professionals to provide mentorship to current students. We've got one of those here at St. Scholastica. As an individual, you get to collaborate with colleagues that may have new ideas. Again, gain those CEUs, especially for students within that are serving as mentors for our educational internships. Our professional organization, the American Health Information Management Association, provides CEUs for people who are mentoring a student. That's something that's built in. So it's can help you to meet those individual needs if you hold a professional certification. And you've got that opportunity to give back through volunteering. And I think that you know, not only are you helping to support people that are coming up, but generally you're going to find that both the educational institution and the aspiring professionals are going to be really supportive and grateful for that opportunity to build that partnership, to exchange ideas, to kind of work on growing together. And in terms of really a broad look of what you can do as an individual, I think that it's really important that you take a look at what your organizational needs are. If there are positions that you're looking to fill or that you are expecting to grow within the coming years, how can you help to build toward that with being mindful of kind of the workforce challenges that we're experiencing right now? You can reach out to institutions, professional contacts. LinkedIn is a great place to identify those folks, because you can look by employer and then start to sort out specifics about field and things like that. Look for those networking opportunities, whether it's something like this or otherwise. And I would really encourage you, don't be afraid to bring an idea forward. Don't be afraid to have that conversation, to call someone up at the institution and say, hey, we're thinking that we have this project work that we're gonna need some help with. How do you think that we can partner on this to get this done and help our organization get this completed, help your students get some experience? Because I think just overcoming that hurdle of starting the conversation will lead to a lot of good things. When I think about this, there's a cycle that we hope that we create. So there are things that happen with networking like we're doing now that lead to those partnership opportunities, and organizations after those partnerships are created are growing, they're building their workforce, they're connecting and improving their culture. And as those people who have moved into those organizations move up into leadership, they'll come back to the educational institutions, continue to partner with us, to network with us, and it just continues to cycle and cycle. And it really is something that benefits everyone who is involved there. And really, I'm going to go through some conclusions. If you have other ideas about ways that you think that partnership could occur or benefits to this, feel free to throw those in the chat too. I think that I just want to make sure if you're coming away with this that you think about when that opportunity comes along for part-time work, for an internship, how you're distributing that, because the communication side of things is really important. Thinking about the pathways for growth within your organization and planning for the future needs. I meant to have a slide on here about communication, and I seem to have left that off, so I'm going to touch on that real briefly too. The way that you communicate with the organizations and with folks is really important as well, because our career services department wanted me to make sure that I mentioned, when you're posting positions, when you've got those positions created and you're going to recruit for them, there's a tool called Handshake that can take, I believe, both internship and full-time or part-time positions being posted. And if you get a job posted to Handshake, all of the institutions that I mentioned earlier on that slide earlier are on Handshake. And so students from all of those areas will see those postings. So it's an easy way, rather than trying to send out 5 or 6 different emails, to make sure that you're getting those job postings and internships on Handshake. And I think reaching out to, again, I know Career Services here does a great job of supporting that, helping employers to get into that system and set up their profile and how they create the postings. In addition, we will see if there's something specific within field that individuals might reach out and say, hey, we've got this position posted for a software developer. Can you spread that with your CIS students? And then we can send something that's more targeted, maybe within the school or within the department if you have a specific contact. But it's good to have that on Handshake first, if possible, and then we can share that on top of, with a targeted message on top of that. And really just thinking about, as an individual, everyone has an opportunity to engage in this on some level, even if it's just attending events like this and looking for opportunities to connect. There's a certain mentorship in that, but really thinking about your organization and how you might benefit from building some of these partnerships and supporting different initiatives. And I went through that pretty quickly. I've reached the end of the things that I have to say here. And I always put this Calvin and Hobbes cartoon on because I think it's really funny. I don't know if anyone else is a Calvin and Hobbes fan, but we're at the point where if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat now or unmute. I've got my contact information listed there. And then that careers@css.edu if you want to connect with our career services department. They're really happy to work with you as well there.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks for the chamber plug too. That was really nice.
Yeah, do what I can.
I do want to mention that we have some really valuable resources on the call today. Betsy Hill and Jose Carrera are both with the the City of Duluth Workforce Development Center. So if you have questions with your organization, you're looking for a certain someone, or maybe you do need help kind of building those connections with colleges, like these are really great resources for you. So Jose or Betsy, please feel free to pop on if you're comfortable, or if you have anything additional you'd like to add.
Jose, I don't know, did you want to share anything, or I can?
Yeah, I was just trying to find my unmute.
Go ahead.
Hey everyone. Well, there's a couple of things that stood out to me from Eric's comments I just want to piggyback on, especially the benefit to the employer and to the individual. One thing that we do through our grant funding here at our program is help build those talent pipelines, networks. We help interns get connected to employers and come to school and kind of all of that puzzle. But one thing I've observed from helping students who get into internships is that real world experience makes such a great difference in employment outcomes for them. Oftentimes that internship converts into a hire through that extended interview process. What allows the local employer to capture a new employee or not get a new employee, but it also keeps folks in the workforce area. The employer gets a fantastic person, they know them, and it helps address their workforce needs. So these partnerships are super important. I encourage the employers on this call to get connected with people like Eric and yourself to help foster that network and build a global talent pipeline. Paid internships are fantastic, but not all organizations do have the capacity or criteria. The workforce job, we can offer grant funding. As Eric mentioned, there's sometimes funding that go right to the intern or to the employer. So if you're curious about that, you can certainly reach out to myself. That's anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, that's great, Jose. I just put our contact info in the chat. We really appreciate the opportunity to connect to employers or our education providers. We have resources through these federally funded employment and training programs that are often underutilized and people aren't always aware of. So I appreciate Chrissy sharing kind of calling us out on this. We've really been able to work alongside employers and students to try and make everyone more marketable on the student side, and then certainly from the employer side to help in some ways offset the costs of hiring employees that need additional training. Eric, you had mentioned that's something that we're certainly seeing that employers are facing, and we have resources through employment and training program dollars to provide on-the-job training funding, for instance, to employers. If an applicant is eligible for our grants, then we can, kind of work quickly, a quick process as they're in the hiring process before they're actually hired, see if they're eligible, and then perhaps reimburse the employer for up to half the person's wage during the initial training. So there's lots of great resources. We'd love to talk through them. I know it's often a one-on-one conversation with each situation, but really glad to have the opportunity to connect.
Fabulous. Well, thank you both so much. And I also kind of want to piggyback off that, is that this is such a good symbiotic relationship, right? The institutional advanced educational institutions, there we go, and industry, because right, we can train our students and then help get them internships, help get them into the workforce, right? But then, those higher education or continued education opportunities, there's studies that say employee engagement has been measured to be an effective retention strategy. So getting them invested in your organization for future growth, that workforce development, right? So we can get those entry-level positions and more from our colleges, and then return to the colleges and say, we're looking for a development opportunity. What do you have? So really reach out to those educational institutions, because that's what they're there for, right? They're the whole cycle of workforce is it's a partnership, and I think this is really valuable. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, and thank you for putting that very eloquently in terms of what I was hoping to deliver.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments you'd like to make before we go ahead and close it out? Anything you'd like to add? You're welcome, audio or in the chat. So feel free to submit that.
Yep. Nice presentation, Eric, and thank you, Eric and Chris, and also Chris, just to add on your comments, it'll help keep more students in Duluth too after they graduate. So
Oh yes,
yeah, let's keep them here.
we
So,
want them here.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Perfect. Well, we've recorded this session, of course, so I will distribute that, the recording once we close out and it's ready, so that you can look back on this again. You're welcome to share it with colleagues if you feel that would be helpful. I will also share Eric's contact information if you have any questions or follow up. And then I did take that contact info that Betsy shared in the chat and add that to kind of a resource list as well. So thank you, Eric, so much for being here and sharing this information. Thank you to Stender School of Business and Technology for sponsoring. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
See you later.
Thank you.